NewsChannel 13 presents After George Floyd, The Talk, with your host, Elaine Houston.
The death of George Floyd has spawned a new national debate on police policies and racial equality. We decided to join that debate by looking at what happens now in our community. Because many people accuse law enforcement of being a big part of the problem, we knew we had to speak with three men who arguably are some of the most important local voices on this issue. But you understand the people's anger when they say defund the police, let's just start all over, is that they've lost confidence in the police.
I certainly understand some people have lost confidence in the police. I would hope that we as leaders can build that trust back if it's been tarnished.
Do you, by show of hands, do you have bad cops that you know are bad and that shouldn't be in your department? Sure. You do.
My position on this is based on personal experience here, and I've had to recommend termination for officers in my department. Officers who did things, in my opinion, were wrong.
A local activist who has spent years fighting for racial justice tells us today she is a little more hopeful following the massive crowds of protesters right here in the capital region. It's one of the few times activist Jamaica Miles has been seen smiling. She's reacting to the throngs of people who came together in the nearly all-white suburb of Clifton Park to protest the killing of George Floyd.
There were 2,000 people in Clifton Park, majority white, screaming Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter!
Albany Med just announced that it is taking action to address racial disparities in healthcare. Benita Zahn has the story.
You walk through the door, there is a 90% chance that you're not going to see someone who looks like you. Access.
Tundra Lagrone is CEO of In Our Own Voices. She says education, more doctors and nurses of color, and funding of programs to affect change are critical to tackling racism in healthcare. So within the institution of Albany Medical Center, Dr. Angela Antonikowski has just been named Chief Officer for Health Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion.
Many have not had to live with the fear of police brutality. For example, in Black households, almost all parents sooner or later have the talk with their kids. They talk about not if you have an encounter with police, but when. I spoke to about a dozen Black moms. I wanted to know, what were they saying now to their sons?
You guys have older kids, and my son is 9 years old, and I had to have that conversation with him.
But we found few whites ever had the talk. They don't have to. Sarah Wade and Nicholas Liu are discussing their awakening to how very different their lives are from most Blacks. And the public outcry over George Floyd's death has made them want to listen even more.
I'm trying to hear other people and to understand.
A local professor reminds us that South Africa only began to change when it faced its demons and acknowledged its past.
Oh, I think you never forget it, Elaine. You never forget it.
Dr. Alex Petersey is remembering growing up in his native South Africa during apartheid.
Because it was similar to Jim Crow. You know, where we couldn't drink from the same fountain, we couldn't use the same restroom.
He's seen a country implode because it never had the talk about its past. When South Africa did, it was the one thing that opened the door for a shift.
Part of that has been about validation. As a globe, we recognize that this horrific thing happened to this group of people.
Could you have racial bias tendencies and not even know it? Greg Owens says yes. It's called implicit bias.
Implicit bias is unconscious bias. It's pervasive. We all have biases.
That means someone white could associate criminality with Black people without even realizing that they're doing it. It also means someone Black could associate all whites with racism without even realizing they're doing it. Each thought is influenced by images they've seen, what others have told them about a particular race or an encounter. I hope you've gotten something out of this information that we shared tonight. We realize that we are not going to solve the problem, but we do hope that this helps foster a conversation